So hi, I want to welcome you to How to Read the Akashic Records. My name is Bonnie Sachs. I'm a certified teacher and healing practitioner, and I'm very excited to have you here today to watch this video. First thing I want to let you know is that you are in the right place, actually at the right time, if you keep hearing about the Akashic Records and you want to know more. This is definitely the place to be. And if you love the idea of clearing the negative energy around something that keeps you stuck, you are in the right place. And if you feel like your soul has been calling you, you are definitely in the right place. And lastly, if you've read more than 5 self-help books in the last 10 years, you are definitely in the right place, because this is really for people who are interested in improving, increasing their vibration, in moving forward in whatever it is that they want to accomplish. So what you'll know by the end of this video, which will probably be about 25-30 minutes, is how to access your own Akashic Records, as well as who your masters, teachers, and loved ones are, and how they can help you get unstuck. Why we are now able to read the Akashic Records without years of study and introspection, and 7 reasons to open your Akashic Records. And that's a pretty cool thing. So I do want to let you know that reading the Akashic Records is really a very priceless tool. It's like having another tool in your toolbox to accomplish what you want to accomplish in your life. It really doesn't matter what it is. It is a tool that you can use for being creative, for resolving issues in your life, for moving ahead in business. It has the ability to be used for many different things. So, excuse me, the Akashic Records is like a cheat sheet. And the cool thing is that we are allowed to use it. Remember those days in school when you weren't allowed to use a cheat sheet and maybe you would have liked to use one? This is a cheat sheet that we are allowed to use. You are accessing wisdom from your higher self to figure out where you're going, what you're trying to accomplish, if you're moving in the right direction. The Akashic Records is a place to go where our guides are always there to listen. And I think that's a real helpful idea. Sometimes we just want to complain. Sometimes we want to just have somebody listen to us, and the Akashic Records will do that. I love this quote from Linda Howe in the book Healing Through the Akashic Records, that healing isn't about fixing anything, it's about awakening to the knowing that we have always been whole and divine. And when we get into the Akashic Records, that's exactly what we start to be very clear on, that we are whole and divine exactly as we are. So the records are a place to connect with Source and really begin to understand this. So here's how I got started. I was a health coach teaching classes around town, and I really wanted to know how I was going to use my health coach certification. So I was looking for a little coaching on how to be a coach. And I have a friend who gave me a Akashic record reading as a gift, and I was talking to the person on the phone, the practitioner, and I asked her how I was supposed to use my health coach certification, and she told me that I was supposed to be reading the Akashic Records. And she continued to tell me that with almost every question that I asked, you know, that it was really important for me to understand that I was supposed to be reading the records. So at the end of the phone call, I asked her what I should do, and she suggested that I read the book by Linda Howe that I've already referenced, How to Read the Akashic Records. So I did, and I got to chapter 4, and I read that we are always doing our best, making the best decision for our highest good. And that just really resonated with me, and I suddenly became clear that reading the Akashic Records is what I was supposed to be doing. So I actually started taking classes online at the Linda Howe Center for Akashic Studies. I took every class she had back to back, and within the year I was a certified teacher. That's me in the background with all of my fellow classmates and Linda Howe. It was a fabulous experience. I really loved it, and I became very clear that my purpose in life is threefold. One is to let people know what the Akashic Records are, about the Akashic Records. The second is to read the records of people who want more information and aren't interested in learning to read the records for themselves. And three is to teach people how to read their Akashic Records, which I think is why you are here today. So let's talk about what are the Akashic Records. So the word Akasha is Sanskrit for primary substance, or that out of which everything is made. And the Akasha is so sensitive that the slightest vibration is felt and recorded. And those recordings are the Akashic Records. So the Akashic Records contain everything that you have ever said, done, or thought since your soul's inception. And if you have this thought that that's a little scary, don't worry, it's not. What's very cool about it is that the Akashic Records are a little bit like a library, or Siri, whatever works for you. And that means you can go to them as a reference source, and you can ask questions like, why do I have an extreme fear of driving over bridges? And they will give you that information. They can go back to the origination of that fear and explain it to you and put it in a perspective so that you understand that you no longer have to be afraid of that situation, and some of the energy around that problem starts to dissipate. So the Akashic Records is actually a dimension of consciousness where we are both conscious and divinely connected at the same time. Now I think that's kind of cool because we're awake, we're aware, and we are connected. We're not in a meditative state. We're absolutely connected to Source or God, the divine, the universe, whatever word you like to use, and it's a very powerful place to be and get really clear of how powerful we are. So the Akashic Records exist in the spiritual realm. That's the good news. Means that it is something that you can achieve, you can go to through a prayer. And we're going to talk about that in a couple of minutes as well. The records are for healing old stories that no longer work for us and realigning with our soul's purpose. So like that I can't drive over bridges issue that I was talking about earlier, it's nice to be able to go in and work on that and realize where that issue started, to be able to work through it, heal it, resolve it, and then we can realign with our soul's purpose. Not that our soul's purpose is necessarily to drive over a bridge, but it might be hindering some of our progress, our forward progress. So let's talk a minute about the structure of the records. First thing I want you to know is that the Akashic Records are non-intrusive by nature. Now that means that no one is going to haunt you or chase after you to get you to read the Akashic Records. If you're meant to read the records, you absolutely will. If you're not meant to read the records, that's completely okay. And you can always go to somebody to have them read your records. But it's nice to know that there are very clear boundaries. So there's several entities that are in the Akashic Records. The very first are the Lords of the Records, and they are non-physical beings. They have never had a body, and we call them the gatekeepers of the records, and they're the ones that are monitoring who gets into the records and who doesn't. So there's some very simple rules about the records. You know, you have to be over the age of 18. You have to have the permission of the person whose records you're trying to access. And so the lords of the records are the people, are the entities that are managing that information. So if I tried to access your records without your permission, I would not be given access. With your permission, I'm given complete access, and that's the responsibility of the lords of the records. Next, we have our masters, and they are also non-physical beings, and they have been with us for our entire journey. So they joined us when our soul was incepted, and they continue to be with us, monitoring what we're doing, helping us along, providing us with information when we need it, kind of tapping us over in one direction or another, and they appear quite often in the Akashic Records. The next group that we have are the teachers of the Akashic Records, and they are with us for the life of a lesson. So whatever you're trying to learn, if you're trying to be more expansive in love, if you are trying to be more patient, I often use that example that my patience teacher sometimes says, really, you still haven't gotten this lesson? But the important thing to understand is that they could have had a physical body at one time, and they are available for a single lesson, and they often come in and give us guidance and awareness when we're working on a particular project. Next, we have the loved ones, and loved ones are people that we have known from this lifetime, and they are there to help us in whatever way we need help. So no, that is somebody who was here in this lifetime, who has passed, who has taken on the responsibility to help us out in some ways. So that might be a family member, it might be a friend, it might be your teacher from first grade, or someone who lived down the street from you, but they are from this lifetime. And all of these entities are there to help us, and they're the beings that we reference when we access the records. So who reads the Akashic Records? That's a great question. It used to be just for mystics and scholars, men who devoted their entire lives to the study and the meditative aspects of the Akashic Records. And as our collective consciousness has grown, we've been given more access to the Akashic Records. So the answer to who reads the Akashic Records is really anyone who is inspired to read the records. Usually it's over the age of 18 years old, but other than that, there really is no restriction whatsoever. You just have to have an interest in it, which is probably you. So why would you want to read the Akashic Records? That's a great question. So I can see that there are 7 reasons to read the records, and I'd just like to encourage you to take a look at each one of them and maybe figure out which is your reason to read the records. So the very first is to tap into your creative side. If you are somebody who has a creative side to you, if you're an artist of some sort, or if you are a writer, or do any kind of activity that you really want to express yourself, opening the Akashic Records and accessing that process can be a very different experience. You can tap into the wisdom from the other side. Here's somebody painting, and here's someone making jewelry. A second reason to read the Akashic Records would be to support those that you love. It's always nice to have a tool handy when you don't understand what somebody is going through, or you would love a great answer and how to help them move forward on a place that they're stuck, and that would be the Akashic Records. So the question might be, who would you like to understand better? The third reason to read the Akashic Records is to see another point of view. I love this cartoon because it's absolutely true that one person sees 4 and the other person sees 3, and sometimes we need a neutral party to sort of explain to us what the other person is seeing. That neutral party is often our masters, teachers, and loved ones in the Akashic Records. So we might ask, what other perspective would you like to see? The fourth reason to read the Akashic Records is to get insights on your own life. I love the rock, paper, scissors analogy because quite often we do that when we make decisions. I know when I'm deciding what to do with my business or a decision about where to move or, what my next step is, I used to feel like rock, paper, scissors was the best answer. And in fact, the Akashic Records is a great perspective. So you can think about what you would most want to know, or maybe it's just something that keeps you up at night and you would really like some perspective on that. The fifth reason to read the Akashic Records would be to clear the karma from your past lives. And we all have it. We have stuff that we have brought in from previous lives or are holding on to even from our current life. And when we go into the records and ask questions, that gives us information and perspective on a past life or an event that happened in our childhood, we really have the ability to look at that from a neutral point of view and see whether it still applies, what we can let go of, and change the energy around that. So, what would you like to know about a past life? What is there to learn? The sixth reason would be to expand, grow, and heal. And anyone who is into improvement and spiritual of any kind, they're definitely looking to expand, grow, and heal. And the Akashic Records is a great place to be. When you go into the records, you can literally ask the question, what can I learn today? And they will give you some kind of information, some sort of insight, thing to look for or thing to understand that you can apply to your life that very day. So what would you most like to heal? The seventh reason for reading the records is to read other people's Akashic Records. If you learn how to read your own, you can read other people's records. And that's a beautiful thing to be able to offer people. I now have, my children who will call me up and say, Mom, could you help me out? Could you give me a little wisdom here? And it's a wonderful thing to be able to say, absolutely, let's take a look at it. So, who would you like to help? So let's talk about how the Akashic Records are read. There are many different ways to access the records. You can actually meditate to access the Akashic Records, or you can chant to do them. And I think they're both great ways to access the records. I just find that they don't work so well for me. Two other ways are through hypnosis and through energy healing. I have a very dear friend who uses theta healing and accesses the records on a regular basis. Those are awesome ways to access the records. I use the pathway prayer process, which was discovered, found, written by Linda Howe. And this is the prayer here. And in just a moment, we'll go over how to read it. So one of the things I like about using a prayer is that it is consistent, predictable results. Life is crazy enough out there without me being concerned of whether I'm in the records or not in the records, if I get interrupted or disturbed in some way. The way of reading a prayer is just so easy, so succinct. It's so very clear. So what happens is energy moves on the spoken word. That's the truth of speech in general. We know this from when we say, I'm sorry, whether we mean it or don't mean it. The words are just the words, but when we put energy behind it, it changes it completely. So when you're reciting a prayer, you are in the spiritual domain, and that's what we're doing to access the records. What we literally do is shift from being brain-centered to being heart-centered. We move from our heads to our hearts. When we're in our heads, we're angry or jealous or um, intolerant or just struggling in general. But when we move down into our heart, we're able to access our soul, and we become grateful and tolerant and have more patience, and we really can focus more on being heart-centered. So that's literally what we're doing, moving from our head to our heart. So let's open our records. If you'd like, you can click here to download the Pathway Prayer, but I'm going to show it to you on the slide so you can just zip back a couple bars to be able to access it. So here's the prayer. What we do is we read the words in black out loud, and the words in blue we read silently to ourselves. So we start with saying out loud, and so we do acknowledge the forces of light. And we continue all the way down to the bottom where it says, and enable me to share the wisdom and compassion that the masters, teachers, and loved ones of me have for me. And then we continue silently to ourselves, saying the words in blue. And we use our full legal name in a place where it says full name. So if you're married, you use your married name. If you have a middle name, you use that. If you have been divorced and you took back your name before, you use that. Here's the trick. The masters, teachers, and loved ones are not sitting on the other side saying, nope, you didn't get it right, or you skipped a part. They are there, ready, willing, and able to give you access to the records. So do not worry if you don't have it right. They're looking for you to have access. So you say this silently to yourself, like I would say, help me to know Bonnie Lynn Sachs in the light of the Akashic Records, and continue that way. And then when you get to the bottom, you say the words out loud, the records are now open. And they are. And then you can sit in that space and ask a question. I often start with the question, what skill, ability, or talent do I bring to the Akashic Records? And you can sit and just focus. Listen. Assume everything that you're thinking of is a message just for you. And as you think that, you will get those messages. For me, I like to write when I'm in the records, and I actually journal, and I will start to write the question that I want to know the answer to, and then information just starts to come to me. So you can try that. I have some people that I have taught that actually record their session and just talk out loud. Other people just can sit kind of in a meditative state and get information, and when they get out of their records, then they write the information down. Whatever works best for you is what you should do. So once you get out of your records, then you recite the closing prayer. You say it out loud exactly as it's written. So you'd say, I would like to thank the masters, teachers, and loved ones for their love and compassion. I would like to thank the Lords of the Akashic Records for their point of view. And I would like to thank the Holy Spirit of Light for all knowledge and healing. The records are now closed. Amen. The records are now closed. Amen. The records are now closed. Amen. You say it 3 times. And then you can sit and ask yourself, what did you notice? How did you feel? You try it. See how it works. If you're like me, you may get a few crickets. When I first started doing this, I actually kind of sat there and spent some time thinking, I don't know if I've got this right. I don't know if I'm doing it right. And then I started tuning in, and eventually I got a little bit of information and then got clear about a little bit more information and then started to understand that a lot of what I was thinking was actually the message they were trying to give me. So you might be asking, how can I learn more? The first option available is to read the book, same book I read by Linda Howe, How to Read the Akashic Records. That's a great way of learning to read the records. The second option is you can enjoy a $50 off of a 75-minute reading from me, and you can ask all the questions you want, and all you have to do is click here to book it. It'll take you right over to my calendar, and you can set up a time to sit down and ask all the questions you want. I say it's 75 minutes, but it really is however much time we need to get the questions answered that you have. The third option is you're always invited to participate in a class that I teach. I teach the basics of reading the Akashic Records. It's an online course. The next one I have coming up is the 4 Tuesdays in January at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and that would be January 10th, the 17th, the 24th, and the 31st. And it's really easy to be online. You learn how to open your records as well as others. You practice asking effective questions. We talk about the 3 levels of healing and really how to use them, how to implement them. We play with ancestral patterns and past life healings. It's a very fun, cool course. I'm always excited to teach it, and this is what's included. You have 1 live interactive class each week. I always give you unlimited playback recordings of each class. You have a workbook with homework, and I say that with quotes. If you want to do it, great. If you don't want to do it, that's okay too. And there's questions to sort of help you build your Akashic Records muscle. There's a private Facebook page where you can ask questions. You have exclusive access to me for any questions or assistance you might have. And in addition, you get a 30-minute Akashic Records reading with me. So you actually get to experience a reading in addition to learning how to read them yourselves. So, in the first lesson, we do background and structure. We talk about intuition versus the Akashic Records, and we're always doing actual work in the records. So after your first lesson, you're definitely going to be able to read your own records. In the second lesson, we talk about how to open the records for other people, and we really talk about resistance and blockages and how you can see them and how you can work with them to improve. So you're going to understand the source of some of your resistance and blockages after the second week. In the third lesson, we talk about the levels of healing and how to practice them. And we actually take a current difficulty that you're having and we go into the records and we get answers on that. So after the third week, you have a new perspective on judgment, fear, and resistance. It's the 3 things that you do not have in the Akashic Records. In the fourth lesson, we talk about your family tree. We talk with the you in a past life and get insights from that you. We discover other uses for reading the records, including reading the records of your pets, of plants, of places you've been. It's really fun. It's always a cool thing. And so by the end of the course, you're going to have started to clear your old stories. You're going to understand some things that have kept you stuck. And most importantly, you're going to feel really comfortable with your own Akashic Records practice. So this whole course is $180. As I said, it comes with, it's the 4 classes with unlimited playback. The one thing I didn't mention before is that it was 100% satisfaction guarantee, and that is with no fine print. So this is actually the link that you can go to register for a class or schedule a session. You can also go there if you want to ask me a question. I just want to let you know one more time that there is no fine print in any of this that I do, whether I do a reading or whether I teach a class. I don't even mess with that. I just want to make sure that you are absolutely satisfied. So here are the links again, to register for a class or to ask me a question. Please, please, please like me on Facebook so that we can stay in touch. I love doing this and I love sharing this with people, and any question you might have, absolutely, contact me on Facebook, email me, send me smoke signals, and I will try to get it. Thank you very much for your attention. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk soon.